Alright guys and girls, we're going to talk today about gun safety, and pretty much I have 3 rules that I think if you follow them will prevent anything like I've been seeing in the news the past couple of days with people having negligent discharges, and injuring themselves, supposedly trying to clean their weapons. Every situation is a little different. I don't know the details of any of these really. It's hard to comment on them. So we'll just go straight into, if you do these 3 things, you shouldn't have to worry about having a negligent discharge. And I'll add a 4th one at the very end specifically for concealed carry. But number 1 would be muzzle awareness. You need to know where your muzzle is at all times. If you're in a certain environment, at 1 second, point in one direction might be good. Next second, something might come into, in line with your muzzle, and you might need to divert a little bit. So that's just something to keep in mind. But you always want to know where your muzzle is. And let's be realistic, in an urban environment, unless you're at the shooting range and you have a backstop that's made for soaking up rounds, there is no 100% safe direction to point that weapon. The idea is you want to point it in the safest direction possible at all times. Number 2 is trigger discipline. You want to find a positive contact, basically, somewhere to put your trigger finger on the pistol here that's going to keep you from getting inside that trigger guard. I've seen some people like a little bit more exaggerated, maybe put it up here, but anything to make sure that your finger's not going to be going on that trigger until you make the conscious decision, to put it there, whether you're engaging a target or doing dry fire practice or what have you. And that brings up another point. A lot of people they like to say, well, one of the big rules of firearms is always treat it like it's loaded. Well, I don't really think that's a good rule because it doesn't always apply. For instance, if I'm doing dry fire practice, I'm not going to be really treating it as it's loaded, because if it was loaded, I'd be shooting holes in my walls or whatever I happen to be dry fire practicing on. So what I'm going to do is anytime I come into contact with a weapon that I haven't had positive control of, that I don't know whether it's loaded or not, I'm not going to worry about checking if it's loaded. I'm simply going to clear it out. And the way to do it, there's really no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The way to do it with especially semi-automatic pistols. I don't have a lot of experience with revolvers, so I won't get into them. But semi-automatic pistols, bolt-action rifles, semi-automatic rifles, pump-action shotgun. If it has a magazine, the first thing you do is you drop the magazine out of it. And I didn't have the mag in this one because I already cleared it out before I started the video. So we'll put the mag in. So we're going to take mag out, step 1. Step 2 is you work the action and you make sure there's nothing down in there in the chamber. And you're good to go. From that point on, the gun's unloaded. If you're doing dry fire practice or whatever, put your live rounds in a different room. I have certain magazines I use for live rounds, certain ones I use for snap caps, dummy rounds, any kind of non-live fire training basically. But and a 4th thing I'll add is for the concealed carriers out there, make sure you get, and I guess open carry would apply to also, make sure you use a quality holster. I've seen a lot of stories, once again, of people injuring themselves using either a crappy, $15 holster where it's, nylon, and maybe when you go into the holster, you get, because the material moves around, it gets inside that trigger guard, press against the trigger, it can go off. Same way with worn out leather holsters, they can do the same thing. That how worn leather sometimes likes to start kind of moving around, and it's not uniform. And trying to think. Well, for instance, my leather holsters I use are all specifically designed for the pistols I have. I'd recommend you do the same. It has to be specifically for your pistol, because if it's not, and you use a universal one, you have a lot better chance of something happening, getting in that trigger guard. Like I said, especially if it's made of nylon or if it's worn leather. I like to stick to the plastic. They have Kydex, and there's some other stuff out there. But yeah, I just want to touch base on here. I think I'm going to be making a couple more videos, maybe concerning some safety stuff and maybe some basic tactics and stuff, because I think there's a lot of information out there now on the internet Some of it's good, some of it's not so good. So hopefully you guys stay safe out there. I hope you learned something today, and we'll see what the next video brings.